Thank you, Lascan Corlin. Thank you to Sinn Féin for bringing forward this motion, which contains a number of sensible and very doable proposals. First of all, Minister, I want to address some of the remarks from Minister Ryan, who has left us. Now, he quite rightly informed us of the global and European situation, which day to day is worsening, as Russia not only sends drones to murder people in their homes, but also deliberately and systematically attacks energy installations in Ukraine. He also told us of the many supports put in place by the budget, and they are real and they are substantial for many families. His list sounded impressive, but it's really important to say, Minister, that many families will not qualify for the majority of targeted supports. The extra payment for those on fuel allowance, for example, is very welcome, but the vast majority of family carers will not be able to avail of that, because still carers' allowance is not a qualifying payment for fuel allowance, despite the fact that if you're caring, especially for an older person, you basically have the heat on all the time. So for some families, Minister, the safety net will hold for now, but there's a cohort of families on low income, low to middle income, who are in real trouble and who will not be able to pay their bills. They include, for example, civil servants who have retired on Class D pensions, many tens of thousands of people, mainly women, whose pensions are a bit above, marginally above the state pension, but who will not be able to avail of any of these targeted measures and will only be able to avail of the universal measures, and they won't be enough. The electricity bills landing on people's mats right now are frightening, but for some they're truly terrifying. These are people who've always paid their bills, who want to pay their bills, but they know that they will not be able to at least fully pay their bills. Those people cannot be disconnected. Many of the people on pay-as-you-go often have no choice, as this is the system in the rental properties they live in. The Taoiseach told us clearly that nobody would be disconnected this winter and spring. And what I want to know is, can the Taoiseach, can this government deliver on that promise, which I believe was made in good faith? Now, Minister, I don't often give specific examples to make a general argument, but something I heard in recent times really stopped me in my tracks. It was about an older man on low income who had a budget in place with help from MABS to try and help him to manage the huge increases in costs over the coming months. He was being advised to use the €400 extra in the fuel allowance to buy a few hundred litres of oil. But despite the best efforts of his advisor, he resisted and he said no. He was going to spend it to put a headstone on the grave of one of his children. Now, I know this isn't everybody's story, but what it illustrates is that those on low incomes have no flexibility and will find themselves, some of them, without light and heat this winter. People have to know that their heat and light will not be turned off. And I'm asking you to confirm the Taoiseach's words here tonight that there will be a moratorium on those disconnections. Minister, your government cannot use the St Vincent de Paul and MABS as a mudguard. They are already overstretched trying to assist people in financial distress. Community welfare officers are overrun. Speaking of exceptional needs payments, apart from the fact it's complicated and difficult to get, you seem to completely forget that community welfare officers are totally overstretched. They're dealing with so many more new requests, more people needing help, but there's no new officers in place. In fact, Minister, some are leaving the service. Those on sick leave and other leave are not being replaced. I know there's real pressure within the system, and yet we have ministers telling some of our most vulnerable people to further add to that pressure. That's not fair. It's not fair because it's not working. Minister, further action is needed now. We want a windfall and solidarity tax to be put in place immediately. We don't have to wait for the EU. Secondly, legislation must be introduced to give the CRU powers to regulate standing charges on energy bills. It's a rip-off what's happening. And finally, a moratorium on gas and electricity disconnections must be introduced immediately.